Hey guys, it's Joe, and this is more from the PTR, patch 4.3. This is the End Time Dungeon, the first of the 3 new 5-mans. The storyline here is that you have to go back in time to get the Dragon Soul to defeat Deathwing. Unfortunately, there's something stopping you, which is a boss here. The final boss in this dungeon is actually preventing you from going back in time, and you have to obviously go take care of that situation. There's plenty of run-throughs on this particular dungeon at this point that you'll see the whole thing. I'm not going to worry about showing you a ton of trash. I'll show you one per boss, perhaps, just to give you an idea of the feel, but it's trash. There's nothing to it. And to be honest, this dungeon takes about 15 minutes. There's not a lot to the dungeon itself. It's not difficult. We had one person that knew the fights, and the rest of us had no clue, and we just kind of figured it out as we went. There are good mechanics here, but I hope they make things difficult. I really didn't have trouble healing this. Now, this is a pre-made level 376 tier 12 druid. So, I mean, the gear's pretty good, but still, this place drops 378 purples. This should be more difficult. Anyway, this is Sylvannas. You get 2 random bosses from the factions, and then the end boss. We got Sylvannas on the first, and what she does, she has several abilities. One, she does a black arrow that deals damage at a random enemy, and it also hits the surrounding people. So you want to spread out so that if you get hit with it, you're not doing damage to your fellow men. Shriek of the Highborn is another one. Actually, what she's doing right now is called Calling of the Highborn, where she ascends towards the sky, pulling enemies towards her, and then she calls her undead, and you can see it makes a ring around her, and there's only one way out. It's going to close on you, so you have to take out you want to focus down one of the ghouls, and then get out through the little passageway and let it collapse in on her while you are safely outside of it. So that's the main mechanic to this fight, honestly. I mean, you're going to have, Unholy Shot, where she fires a volley of missiles at an enemy and, striking up to 3 targets for 5,000 shadow damage. I'm sorry, 50,000 shadow damage. So, but yeah, honestly, it was so easy to heal through. The main mechanic was the Calling of the Highborn, and you'll see it again here. Again, the main thing you want to do is don't have all your players focusing or hitting different ghouls and everything else and trying to get down. Just focus down one, give yourself an alleyway, and here she goes again, and just get out of it so you're safe, and just let it collapse in on itself. She does pull you in. We spread out a bit. And you'll see, a couple people broke off and started on different ones, but, we marked the one and took it out. And, like I said, right through the gateway. And you're fine. That's it. There really isn't anything else to it. The damage, I'm a healer by trade, as you guys well know, and I never really had a problem healing this dungeon. There are certain circumstances where people were too far away and things like that, I had to worry about, but other than that, it was easy. As you can see, she's down 378 gear off. I'm not going to worry about showing you the gear. There's plenty of loot tables and stuff out there, so and it's good gear. I mean, obviously it's 378. It's the same as the Firelands raid. That's what disturbs me. Obviously, we always have this, obtaining gear and getting purples and the nerfing of raids to get people more geared up to end up getting to the newer stuff, but this should be more difficult. I mean, honestly, this was no more difficult than the standard heroics now. ZAZG are more difficult than this by, tenfold, I would say. Alright, this is Tyrande Whisperwind, and she is in Moonlight, she is in Midnight. She's in Blackness, so she uses a lot of Moonlight in her fight. She's going to have abilities called Moonbolt, Stardust, Moonlance. As you can see, that was a Moonlance that breaks into 3 parts, and I didn't see it did any damage to me. I don't know if I just happened to get lucky or dodged. I mean, I end up dodging it, but I don't know if I was between. It seems like I get hit by it, but I didn't see any damage from it at all. There's a lot of these, there's, I believe, those little, orbs in the background are the eyes of the goddess. I'm not sure, but just move around, just avoid this stuff. Melee's in there, and they're going to have another AoE that they have to deal with, but they can interrupt it. So as long as you have an interrupt and you don't stand in the stuff and avoid, obviously, all this stuff moving around, you're perfectly fine. Again, this is not a tough fight. I really do hope they buff this up, because that's all it was. I mean, our tank, in fact, actually it wasn't a tank, it was our DPS warrior who knew the fights, was the only one that knew the fights in this. Basically just said, stay out of stuff and interrupt. And that's all we needed to know, and we were able to take her down with ease. Again, a little disappointing. I really do hope that they buff this up. Alright, this is the final boss, Murazond, which is the future self of Nozdormu, which actually Nozdormu will be in this fight. He will help give a blessing at some point that will increase casting speed, melee ranged speed, and movement speed by 40%. That will help, obviously. That'll be in conjunction, I believe, with using the hourglass that you see as well. That is part of the situation here. This guy is blocking our way from getting into the past to get the Dragon Soul. And luckily we have the hourglass here that's going to help us in this fight. Basically, the main things that you need to worry about are he's got a frontal cone, which, you know, what dragon doesn't have a frontal cone? Flame breath. Also, the distortion bombs that are on the ground. You can see the gold swirlies there. So there's going to be a bunch of them, and that's going to be a good indicator as to when you want to use the hourglass to rewind time, because clicking the hourglass, it resets your health, your mana, your cooldowns, and it also gets rid of the distortion bombs. It clears the area. So you can see I had to get up a little bit on the boss to heal the tank. I was in charge of clicking the hourglass, so I had to hit kitty form to get back there. So do your healers a favor, tanks, if you're going to do that strat, kind of have the boss a little bit closer. Now see, there's the mechanic of the rewind time. It's really cool. You do get the blessing of the 40% movement speed and everything else. Don't get me wrong, guys. I keep saying that these fights need to be more difficult. The mechanics are fun. The Sylvannas fight was fun. Tyrande was okay. This one's a blast, but it just needs to be a little bit more difficult. You can see we get 5 charges, that little indicator at the bottom. We get 5 charges to use on the hourglass to rewind time. We only have to use 2. The boss is nearly down now, and I only used it to clear the distortion bombs at this point. So that's the thing. It's a fun dungeon. I love the idea, and I can't wait to see the others. It's just they need to... If this is a heroic difficulty dungeon that's going to give 378 loot, it just needs to be a little more difficult. That's my opinion. So, anyway, thanks, guys. This is End Time Dungeon from the patch 4.3 PTR. And, as always, take care of yourselves.